my name is Alonso Martinez, and today we will talk about how being born in Mexico has impacted my life, how getting to work on amazing workplaces like Pixar Animation Studios, helping make movies like Coco and Up and Inside Out, as well as getting to work on some really cool characters that you see here on the screen. Embarking upon that curiosity about creating characters led me to creating my own robots from scratch, and then eventually led me to working at Google AI, where I'm trying to figure out how to use artificial intelligence and reinforcement learning for making next generation characters that are not only intelligent but also emotionally aware. And so when I was born, what's interesting is that there really wasn't necessarily like an ambitious bone in my body. It was I all that I wanted to be is I remember sitting in the kitchen while my mom was cooking and she was watching telenovelas, Mexican soap operas, and there was like these. One of the characters you could always tell like the bad guys, and I had a very simple goal in life, was just like, just don't be one of those bad guys, and it was something so simple. My mom was always like, be nice, be appreciative of everything that you have. And I feel like some of the cultural values that I got from my family. So this picture right here is my grandma's house. So this particular picture is in Christmas, but nonetheless, they get together every single Saturday, and like 20 people. It's like Thanksgiving every single weekend, and I think that type of like love and jokiness kind of really interwove itself into my personality and made itself so much of who I was and how I looked at the world. But again, there was nothing truly too ambitious until I met somebody that had something that I did not have yet, which was this burning like appreciation and passion for a subject matter. This is Stephen Fuchs, my geometry teacher, who it really changed my life. During the first intro to class, he was talking about math in a way that his eyes were just glimmering. He was almost crying. He was talking about how math could be found in nature and how it could be used to predict all of these beautiful things about the planet, and how incredible mathematicians were able to find these relationships between things, and they just kind of like highlighted these inherent elegances about the world that could then be discovered kind of by human beings. And that was so infectious to me. And I remember like during like French class and like science class or something like that, I would run to his classroom and I would be like, Mr. Fuchs, I think I found something, and he would be like, oh, like maybe like not quite that, but maybe if you think about it this other way. And he was like guiding me to the point where I remember like discovering something for myself that somebody had discovered like thousands of years ago. But like I got a taste for what that felt like, and I think I've been chasing that kind of my entire life. Um, so after high school, uh, I was, had to think about like where was I going to go to college, and I really wanted to go to the school named Ringling, and I didn't immediately get it. Well, I got a phone call from the recruiter, and they were like basically like, you're in the waiting list, you probably won't make it. And then she called me back and she was like, hey, you've made it barely. And so there was this interesting thing where I had this mentality of like knowing that I was bottom of the barrel. But instead of letting that crush me, there was some aspect of it that was like, that saying that goes something along the lines of like, every challenge is an opportunity waiting disguise, or every problem is an opportunity waiting in disguise. And I remember just being like, you know what, even if I'm like, even unlike all these other students that had so many art classes before going to an art college, it's like, even if I was bottom of the barrel, I'm gonna like, learn so much. I'm gonna be a sponge. I'm gonna absorb all these concepts, and then I'm gonna do something awesome. And what was really nice is at Ringling, I was able to surround myself with people kind of like Mr. Fuchs that like deeply cared about the work that they did. Primarily students. They were so ambitious in the projects that they were trying to do. But as well as teachers. I had this one teacher that was taught a class called Western Ideas in Societies, and I feel like that class completely changed my life. In that there was this very simple idea that said, there are two types of problems, and I'm already like, that sounds like nonsense, but I think they're right. They're like the local problems, the ones basically that you can do something about, you have influence, or global problems that, even with your greatest effort, you will probably be able to nudge it in the right direction, and that's incredible. You should do that. But most people think that the majority of the problems in their life are global problems, things they can't do anything about, instead of local ones. And that's people's biggest mistake. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about if I wanted to be one of these people that discovered this like new type of observation or relationship in the universe, is that I was going to need a lot of like energy, and kind of like a superhero, like where will I draw my energy from the sun, like Superman or something like that. And I was thinking about my life, thinking like, where are the places where I get my energy from? And it was like, well, of course, like my family, I get a lot of energy from them, my best friends, my significant others. So these were places where I would certainly get energy, but I thought there was something such a bummer that it was like outside of my control, and that they were giving me energy, right? And I was like, aren't there other sources of energies? Like religion, many people draw energy from that. But there was one thing that I thought was so beautiful, and religion is really one of these things, which is this: an idea can be a source of energy. And let me give you two examples of that. One of them was somebody had been a butthead to me. They're really mean, and I was really hurting. And it wasn't until I recognized that if I let this terrible event kind of like traumatize me, that I would probably be learning the wrong lessons, that I would probably you know, um, be learning a shortcut that was easy then, but it would really screw me over, like over the long period of time. And I didn't want to do that. And when I thought about kind of why they were making the decision and their background, their history, I understood kind of why they were behaving the way they were. And that totally like helped to lessen the suffering that I was feeling during that situation. And it was like that was this magical point, like thing where like a point of view, a way of looking at something, could remove an obstacle and give you energy to thrive, to amplify yourself. And then another example of the same thing is this picture. I don't know if you recognize this picture. I would love to be able to ask you. Unfortunately, I can't through this web medium. But this picture is a picture of Earth taken 3.7 billion miles away. And this photo was taken by a team of people, including Carl Sagan. And to me, it was so beautiful. If you haven't heard or read The Pale Blue Dot by Carl Sagan, it's amazing. And in it, he says, imagine the rivers of blood that have been shed to become the momentary owners of a single fraction of this dot, this pixel in space, floating in this beam of light. And when I thought about it, it's like, wait, um, if this is planet Earth and it's a dot, and the United States is a dot, and I'm a dot on the dot, and how big are my problems? It's just like a dot on the dot on the dot. And from that vantage, especially when you think about it along the axis of time, it's just like at the blink of an eye, and it's just everything's all gone. Your life is come and gone. And so from that point of view, it's like the issues in my life became unobservable, and that to me was so empowering to allow me to kind of be thinking about like ways in which I can achieve the ambitions that I was starting to grow to have. Um, so when I was graduating college, yet again, I was not necessarily the most uh, popular student, the best student. I almost failed my senior year. I actually had to stay during winter break to make up for like lost work. And so when the recruiting started coming to Ringling, I really thought I didn't have a chance of kind of getting into school. And like I was talking about with my family about like the being appreciative, I think there was certainly like a lot of luck in that the people that came for recruiting, they were able to see past kind of like the who were the popular students, or like asking teachers who are the best students. They saw the work, and I think they recognized that this person might not be the best right now, but they have such a deep internal curiosity, and that is worth more than anything, is that kind of like learning rate, or that trajectory, or that curiosity, that internal fire. And to my surprise, I got a bunch of like companies that wanted to interview me, and then getting the job at Pixar, that was just such a mind-blowing moment. And getting to work at Pixar was everything that you could imagine that it was. Actually, probably even more so. It was so magical. And here are some of the beautiful, environments in Pixar, as well as like the culture was super fun. It was super goofy. We got to like, this is Halloween. I would dress up like Zuko or Spock, or like Cloudy and a Chance of Meatballs. Um, but I obviously even more so than just the culture and the place. The making the movies was so amazing, and particularly for Coco, which I got to participate in something that was like my heritage. I got to contribute in, like I was saying earlier, in a super impactful way. So. since I was a kid, I had this collection of alebrijes, and when the movie started, and I knew that they were going to have alebrijes, I like brought all of mine, my collection, my giant collection, and it actually became the collection, the like reference that they were using for the movie, and it was so cool to know that that I was making a difference in that type of a way. So here's an example of a character that I made, Pepita. So it was so much fun. It was like this like gnarly character with all of this kind of like slightly sculptural art deco kind of like details and facets, and so geometric and playfully sculptural. So it was a lot of fun. The designs were a lot of fun, but there was something more than that. There was this aspect where I knew something about the culture that I wanted to like share with the whole world. I wanted somebody to be able to look at my work and appreciate, like make that connection that I was talking about, find an elegance in the universe that they had not seen before. And I really wanted to do this for the indigenous. For me, it's like, Mexico has such an incredibly deep culture and history that I wanted to be able to show some of that. And so here's like when I looked at their faces and how sculptural and beautiful the shape of their lips, the structuralness of their cheekbones, like the shape of their face, the Asian influences in the character in the top left. These were all so beautiful, and even the shape language in the top left about like Mayan, Aztec, Incan, Olmec, kind of like different cultures. I wanted to incorporate those things into the shape language of the characters, and so here is some of the characters that I did for the movie that had a lot of that kind of like indigenous kind of beauty to it. And certainly this is not like what you think of the Anglo-Saxon kind of like standard of beauty of like the Little Mermaid or something like that. These are very different looking characters, but I still felt like there was something so gorgeous about the diversity and shapes that kind of they have, and all doing so while being appreciative, and being careful to not trigger kind of like negative stereotypes. So the movie was a lot of fun to make, and obviously it was critically acclaimed very well. I was lucky enough to kind of have gotten an Annie Award, and here I'm actually wearing my grandpa suit. So it's a charro suit, a real charro suit, not like some costume thing or some mariachi suit. It's like the medallions are actually like made out of silver. And I remember this kind of like Anton Ego moment when I like put on the suit and it fit like a glove, and I was it was like I was teleported back in time to when he had probably last worn it. And I just felt so proud of my culture and being able to participate in that way, and it was just so awesome. So after working at Pixar, there was this I was at Disneyland, and I remember seeing somebody that one of the characters that I had worked on, that I was this background character that I think nobody cared about. Somebody had custom made a T-shirt with this character, and I was like so blown away that people could care so much about a character, like a background character. And it's like these people felt like they were their friends, but I thought that there was still something missing, which was the robotics aspect of it. It's like how much more powerful could these character relationships be if you were able to interact with them? And of course, robotics and video gaming are some of those ways. And here I started kind of like getting into robotics. I made two characters. One of them is called Gertie. And so I began in a very kind of possibly like ignorant kind of like position where I was like, I'm going to do the simplest, like I'm going to start at the beginning, and I'm going to do like what we did in animation school, which is like a ball bounce. So I'm going to make a robot that bounces. And it turns out that was actually like, I didn't know, but it was a really ambitious project, but I ended up learning so much, and it was so much fun. So I like said, what is the criteria that I need to meet? Okay, so I wanted to jump about half of its height. I thought about I was like, what are mechanisms that could do this type of jumping? And I was like, oh, maybe like a gear that only has teeth in half of the wheel, and then a piston with a spring. And then once it gets to the part with no gears, it like slams into the floor and jumps. And I was like, that's cool, but it will only ever jump one height. And then the one on the right, it was like, oh, if it was something like that, I could see it kind of jumping different heights. But then I was like, but what about like if it could jump kind of like Lux of the lamp, where it had directionality, right? It didn't just jump up and down. It could like jump two places. And I was like, that's so cool. And I found this mechanism called the Delta robot, and I like built my own version and started like playing around with how to control it using Arduinos and things like that. And you wouldn't believe the amount of things that I have been able to learn from YouTube. Like literally, the reason why I have the job that I have right now was 90% because of YouTube and the internet. And so, little one step at a time, being able to be like, okay, so I want the outside of the robot to be squishy. How do I do that? What are things? Okay, silicone is squishy. How do I make silicone? Okay, molding, casting, like learning little by little. These springs, I couldn't find the springs that were the specific, tension and properties. So I actually learned that you could make your own springs with music wire and then annealing them in the oven. And it was so much fun to build the characters, but it was also so much fun to share them. So this is Maker Faire, and seeing people interact with the characters. And so what was interesting is that from my first robot, I learned that like locomotion was cool, but the thing that I was most after was social interaction. And so this is one of my robots, Mira. So the idea is you hide, and then you go, and so, to make that social reaction, the face is the most important part, and the eyes are the most important part. And so I was like, how do I make a face that like moves around? I took inspiration, again, I was like, what do I know in my life that does that? And I took inspiration from an old joystick that I had, took it apart, figured out how it worked. Again, I didn't know mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, software engineering. And you could have really let like those things crush you, but I was so motivated by like like just wanting to build the thing that I didn't even let those things kind of bother me. Um, and so here's the character kind of like first time that it was like moving around, and I was like, oh cool, it works, and one problem at a time. This is the sound for the character, and making an interface by which you could author kind of like the sounds, and then the eyes, the blinking, for the OLED eyes. And so you can see that it's like, the character was the robot was kind of a complicated character that by the end I felt myself like a little bit of a, I knew more than I thought. That I like, people started coming to me asking questions about how do you do things. I was like, I actually know the answers to some of these things. It looks so cool, right? I didn't take any classes. It was all like following tutorials online, and it was so much fun. So here's Mira. Hey. La. So it imitates me. And again, showing it at Maker Faire and seeing how excited people would get, that was so much fun. And then came something very unexpected. I never thought that I would be leaving my dream job until that yearning for discovery. For such a long time, I felt like the discovery of things, the things that like, made me feel like a child, like technology that was so advanced that it seemed like magic. That happened so rarely, like maybe once a year or something like that. And then something happened. Artificial intelligence, neural networks, deep neural networks started changing almost every aspect of so many different industries. And it felt like every other week there was this kind of thing that made me feel in that childlike way, right? In this kind of like, how is that possible, in that magic way? And I was so curious by it. And then a friend called me up and he was like, hey, they knew me from the robotics things, and they were like, what would it look like if you were to take artificial intelligence and characters and interactive characters and social characters? Well, what would that look like? And I was like, I've been thinking about exactly the same thing for such a long time. And so I made the leap of faith to kind of going to Google AI. But before I did, I remember being in this moment of true kind of despair where, I was thinking about whether I should do it or not. And I remember thinking to myself, like, who do you, like these negative thoughts of like, who do you think you are? Like, are you smart enough? These are like researchers. Like, you didn't really take like advanced calculus or linear algebra or like statistics or like deep like algorithms and like computer science. It's like you don't know any of these things. So it makes you think that you can make an impact in this field. And I thought about it for a while, and I was like, this is the same situation that I've been in so many times in my life. How is this any different? You know, you want to be the person at the bottom of the barrel where you're surrounded by some of the smartest people in the industry. And I was like, even if I currently don't think I'm smart enough, if I can take it just one step at a time, and when thinking about what I could say to you, to what is the one piece of thing that I could communicate to you, it was to hopefully that spark of fire and that Mr. Fuchs kind of was able to transfer onto me. I would hope that you could see that the things that I've done in my life have just been so deeply rewarding, and that I've been able to achieve them because I followed my heart. And I was not able to, I would not let these like obstructions, these like moments of doubt stop me. I was able to find the sources of energy in my life and think hard about which ones weren't amplifying kind of who I was, what relationships were not healthy, and getting rid of them. And then thinking of ways to like not let trauma kind of like become future roadblocks for the way that you interacted with people in the world. Ways of looking at problems that would only kind of like give you energy, and be pulled by this kind of like by this deep yearning to you had having a reason to like wake up every morning being like, I can't wait to get up in the morning to do X. So I don't have these answers, they're within you, and I hope that you look deep inside of yourself and say, why do I get up in the morning? What do I find that exciting? And sometimes it feels like people just need permission. to go do these things. I felt like, wait, I'm allowed to do that? And it's like, and I think later on in life, I realized that you don't need anyone's permission. And if you do, I give it to you. I give you permission to go follow, the reason why you get up in the morning, the reason that like makes your face glow when you think about something. And I really hope that you enjoyed this talk. And if you ever want to reach out to me, this is my email, alonsorobots@gmail.com. And if you want to ask me about Pixar or about Google or about life, feel free to give me an email, shoot me an email. And again, thank you so much for everything. I hope you have a great conference. Take care.